Welcome to the Latinx-A-THON. Y si Adalita se fuera con otro.
Yo te traigo esta bomba puertorriqueña.
Aloha and welcome back to my channel. I'm Marilyn Maya, the baby boomer booktuber. And when I first started, I said in my newbie tag that I wasn't going to do any read-alongs or, well, maybe read-alongs, but not read-a-thons, let's put it that way, because of my age. But this one I have to do. It's Latin Heritage Month from September 15th to October 15th. And we have Latinx-A-THON. I was tagged by Libre Labra, and I'll have her information down in the comments. And this Latinx-A-THON is basically reading books from Latino authors, Latinx authors, which I've done all my life. So let's get started. We have some prompts to get to, and the first prompt is voices. Read a book by a Black or Indigenous Latinx author. My pick for this prompt was Down These Mean Streets by Piri Thomas. I read this book in 1967, so it's old school, but it's great. It's a lyrical memoir about his life growing up in Spanish Harlem, El Barrio. This book is a testament to his Latino heritage of being an outsider. He was born a morenito, and his parents did not accept their black heritage. So already this is starting to be perfect for the prompt. And Piri Thomas, this is his story of his plunge into drugs, crime, and he actually shot a cop and was sentenced to 7 years in prison, where he had an awakening. This book is so wonderful. I just felt it right deep in my heart, and I hope that he passed away a few years ago, and I hope everyone will read this book. The second prompt is Latinidad. Read a book written by an intersectional Latinx author. My pick is In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. Now, I had to look up what intersectional meant. I guess I'm old for these new words, but I'll read it here. Intersectionality is a theoretical framework for understanding how aspects of a person's social and political identities, example, gender, sex, race, class, sexuality, religion, disability, physical appearance, height, etc., combine to create unique modes of discrimination and privilege. Now, The Dream House is an engrossing memoir written in a very experimental way. Carmen Maria Machado is a queer author, so this fits the prompt, and I really loved her writing. She shows how you can write a memoir in different ways. For example, there's very short chapters. Some of them are shorter than others, and she uses literary language like the dream house as a prologue, the dream house as literary device, a metaphor, etc. And that was very interesting. I heard some people don't like that, but I loved it. And the story is about her abusive relationship with another woman. And this topic is not often talked about enough, that there are queer relationships that have emotional, in her case, emotional abuse. And it's a beautiful story. So I suggest you read it. Okay, the next prompt is roots. Read a translated book or a book featuring more than one language. For this, I picked Plays by Josefina Nigli. I just bought this book for one play called Soldadera, but I wanted to talk about Josefina Nigli and her wonderful body of literature that she wrote. She was born of Anglo parents, so she had an unusual bringing up in that she wasn't always accepted by Mexican society. But she has a wonderful, she was brought up in Mexico, and she writes about the Mexican Revolution and the soldaderas, which were the women soldiers that helped the men during the war. I have a very personal take on this because I was in when I was in 9th grade, I was in the play Soldadera, and it was performed in English and Spanish. So I'm assuming that this play was written first in Spanish, so it satisfies the prompt of having two languages. And the play Soldadera was a very short play about 5 women who are in the mountains hiding from Pancho Villa. And they tell their stories about how their husbands were killed and all these things that happened to them during this terrible war. But in the end, well, I won't tell you what happens in the end because it's only one of the stories in this book of plays, but still, it's a wonderful story. I played Adalita, and in the end, she saves everyone. I didn't know the history of the Adalitas when I was in this play. I was only 15. And I remember the end where I had a big scene, but I played Adalita. But in reality, the Adalitas were the women soldiers, the soldaderas. And that's what they were called, the Adalitas. And they were looked upon as very brave, which they were. And part of the song, it turned into a song. And it was a Russian guy, actually, in the 30s that turned it into a song. And it became a Mexican folk song. I don't know how that happened, but it did. And what I remember, the women were singing, and I'll try my best to just give you a little hint. Y si Adalita se fuera con otro, la seguiría por tierra y por mar. Si por mar en un buque de guerra, si por tierra en un tren militar. I don't know if I should translate that or not, but I'll do my best. So if Adalita goes with another guy, basically, I would follow her from earth to sea. If it's sea, I'll go in a vessel of war. If it's by earth, by a military train. It sounds so much better in Spanish, right? And forgive my kind of broken Spanish because in Hawaii I don't have too many people to speak to. Okay, so I suggest that you read this book of plays by Josefina Nigli. I'm excited. I bought the book. It was very hard to get, but I hope to give you more in the wrap-up. Heritage. Read a book written by an author from a non-Spanish speaking Latin American country or heritage. My next book is Brazilian Bombshell. It's translated, it's the biography of Carmen Miranda, a Brazilian samba, very famous samba dancer in the 1950s and 40s and 50s. Well, she died in 1955. And this was translated by Martha Gil Montero. It says here she's a Spanish translator, but I know Brazilians speak Portuguese. So I'm not sure if she speaks also Portuguese or she had to learn it. I'll find out when I read it. But I do know Carmen Miranda from her movies. I'm old enough to have seen her movies. And she was the girl with the tutti frutti hat. She used to wear hats with bananas on it and fruits in it, and then she would dance beautiful sambas. And she also acted with many. She was a Hollywood actress, basically. And according to the blurb for this book, she was born in Rio de Janeiro with desperately poor parents until their teenage daughter started to get famous through being a singer-dancer, specializing in Brazilian samba. She was famous by 1939 and brought to the US by Hollywood filmmakers, and was soon on her way to stardom. Even though she gave the impression of being an extrovert, really fun, this book is supposed to show how she was tortured and very introverted, actually, and a very hard worker, and how she died at age 41. So I'm very excited to see the real Carmen Miranda, and I will give you more on my wrap-up. Okay. The next prompt is the Latinx Lit Takeover. And they have a group book, By Any Means Necessary, by Candace Montgomery. And this is a YA novel written by an author with many of the prompts. I heard might be queer, or he's also Afro-Caribbean. And it sounds like a really good book. But I don't read much YA, so I'm excited to have my foray into this genre. Okay. The next prompt is to read books that are written by authors representing a different Latinx heritage. And this was inspired by Read with Cindy, who did an Asian readathon. And for my pick, I have two picks, in fact. And one is The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo, a Dominican American living in New York. And it is a YA type of book, but it really is up my alley, because this is about a girl who's brought up very Dominican, very protected, but she really wants to write poetry and spoken word. And it shows, I'm told, about her journey of expressing herself through words. And I also used to do spoken word, so I can't wait to read her rap. And I'm looking forward to reading this book. The last book that I have on this bonus round is The Mambo Kings Sing Songs of Love. This was written by Oscar Hijuelos, and he was Cuban American, also from New York, as I was born in New York as well. And this won the Pulitzer Prize. And it's about a time in history that I'm really excited about, because it's 1949 and two Cuban American brothers come to New York and become famous for their dance music and their love songs. My mother and father met in 1949 at a dance at the Palladium, where these two brothers were probably playing. And this really tells the story of, and it's not something that's changed, about how people come to the United States from Latin countries and how they have to get used to living in a foreign land, basically. Now, the Mambo Kings also has a movie. They made it into a movie with Antonio Banderas, and I forgot the other guy, but I only had eyes for Antonio Banderas anyway. And what's really good about the movie, it's not as good as the book, But what was good about the movie is that they featured Celia Cruz and Tito Puente and some of their music, which was really exciting. So I really enjoyed that. So I hope that you'll read this book because it goes into more of these two brothers and their experiences in New York leaving Cuba. So that's the end of my TBR. I hope that you will read all these books or some of them. I plan to. And if you like this content, please like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. And I promise that there will be more dancing, singing, books, and a lot of other things. So for now, aloha.